Hi guys, Mark Dawes here, and this short video I want to talk to you about professional indemnity insurance. Now, in case you don't know what that is, professional indemnity insurance is the insurance cover you have that covers you for a claim that's made against you outside the classroom or the training hall. And what I mean by that is, let's say you teach someone something, you show them a technique or you give them instruction, they go away and implement that, and there's a death or a fatality or a serious injury or whatever, and they make an allegation that you taught them incorrectly, you gave them bad advice, you showed them an unsafe technique. That's what professional indemnity insurance is there to cover you for. Now, I've just had an interesting discussion with a broker about this, because as you know, I get involved in lots of little cases, and I was involved in one this year where this was actually brought up. And the question I posed to the broker was this: if you knowingly taught something, or you knowingly gave advice that you knew to be incorrect because there was better advice out there, or there was new research and new evidence out there which we as trainers ignored, and taught something we shouldn't have taught, does the cover still cover us, or are we negligent? And the broker said, basically, if you are negligent, knowingly negligent, you are giving advice, instruction or information to someone that you know is dangerous because there is a safer alternative, then potentially the cover won't cover you. Basically the insurance is null and void. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here. I recently got into a discussion with someone who called me up for some advice. This was about 2 or 3 days ago, and they said, Mark, we're being taught to hold people on the floor. 4 or 5 staff holding someone down on the floor. I said, okay, what's the issue? He said, well, I raised the point that there are safer techniques. We could have them sat down, or we could have them stood up, he said, by the use of more restrictive techniques. But we were told by the training provider that you can't use restrictive techniques because that might cause discomfort, harm or pain. Therefore, you can't use those techniques. You can't use anything that may cause pain. So putting them on the floor is a safer alternative because there's no pain involved, there's only pressure. Now, my response to that was, okay, how many people do you know have died from a restrictive technique in an upright position? He said, well, none. I said, well, how many people do you know have died from being held on the floor with 4 or 5 staff holding them down? And by the way, if you haven't watched the videos yet on Senny's law, this might be a good time to go to our YouTube channel and watch those videos, because the new law being proposed by Parliament is designed to actually stop the excessive use of force, or at least investigate transparently any death which results primarily in a mental health setting where excessive use of force is alleged to be made. And in the case of Senny, Osani Lewis, 11 police officers held him down and he died. So they're looking at that sort of thing. So I said, look, in light of this, in light of these cases, there's a safer alternative. Keep them sat up, keep them stood up, put a restrictive technique on which prevents them going to the floor. I said, and you probably reduce or eliminate the risk of someone dying. And I also said to him, and there's equipment you can use out there. There's handcuffs, there's soft cuffs, there's restraint belts, there's safety pods. Nowadays, there's a lot of equipment. And he said, well, the company won't buy the equipment. They have no budget for the equipment. He said, we're now being told we can't use these restrictive techniques, so we have to put them on the floor. And I said, well, what sort of environment is this in? And he said, it's a security door supervision type environment. He said, but we're doing lots of other work in schools and in care homes. And basically he said, we can't use the restrictive techniques because if we do, our accreditation is null and void, so we have to take them to the floor. That's part of the system we've been trained in. So I posed this question to the broker. And I said, we know. I said, there's evidence, research that people die in certain positions, and we know there's safer positions. I said, but people don't want to use them. I said, because of an opinion. I said, either or because they don't have the right information or knowledge. And he said, well, it is a grey area, and you need to take legal advice on this. But fundamentally, if they are knowingly, and there's the key word, knowingly, using a technique that increases the risk of harm or death where a safer alternative exists, he said potentially their insurance policy is null and void because they're acting negligently, possibly illegally. He said, but that's a case for a lawyer to pick up on. Now, many of you know we interview lawyers on a regular basis. It's part of our program. And those of you that have come on our course in the past, or will come on the course in the future, will have seen the interview we did with Michael Mansfield, who, if you don't know Michael Mansfield, is one of the leading QCs, barristers, lawyers this country's ever produced. And I asked him the question. I said, what happens if someone is using a technique knowingly that they shouldn't be using, that increases the risk of death and someone dies? And he said quite, openly, he said, there are techniques that increase the risk of death, and if someone is using those techniques where a safer alternative is known to exist, and someone dies as a result of them not exploring a safer alternative, then that is a violation of Article 2. And we have case law that backs this up to support this stuff. So I just wanted to leave that with you right now, because obviously if you're teaching or training, you need insurance cover. But it's really important to understand that you can get insurance cover. That's not hard. You can go to a broker, they'll give it to you. You can get cover. But if you are teaching stuff that you knowingly shouldn't be teaching because there's a safer alternative there, or you've been pressurized into using techniques that you know you shouldn't be using when there is a safer alternative there, either a safer technique or equipment, and a serious injury or, God forbid, fatality occurs, potentially your insurers could turn around and say that policy is null and void and you are not covered. And that's your future gone, that's your house gone, that's your career gone, and that's your life down the pan. Now, I don't want to sound over dramatic on this stuff, but it's a fact. And that's why we've taken so much time and effort to make sure that what we teach to the people that we train is legally defensible, and we go to court on a regular basis to do that, and we support people to do that. And if you are looking to become a trainer, a physical intervention or restraint trainer or a self-defense trainer, it's worthwhile just considering with whoever you're going to train with, whether it's us or whether it's someone else, whether or not what you're being taught and what you're being expected to teach is going to be increasing the risk of injury and fatality or reducing it, and whether you're being taught techniques that you know you shouldn't be using because there is a safer alternative. You need to challenge and question that, because you can go to the broker, you can get your policy, no problem at all, but you may find that if it goes to court and they challenge this, the insurers may pay out, and then if they find that you've been negligent, sue you for the money back, or they may turn around and say, do you know what, because you were doing something that you knowingly shouldn't have been doing, your policy is null and void. Please check your insurance. I'll be interested in any comments you have. Leave a comment below. It's a really important point. So if you are a trainer or you are thinking of becoming a trainer, please go to your broker and find out how you are covered for what you teach. And if you have any questions, leave a comment below, drop me an email. Happily answer them for you. Thanks for listening.